What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. How is everyone's summer going? I hope everyone is enjoying their summer break. It's coming to an end here in Philadelphia. Luckily, the heat is starting to calm down. I just recently got back from a trip. I know none of you care about any of this. I don't know why I'm talking about it. But I was recently out west in the high desert, and it was 117 degrees at the hottest point out there, and coming back to the East Coast for the first time was pleasant only because of the temperature. It was like 30 degrees cooler when I came back home. So anyhow, none of that is related to lightsabers. So let's talk about the install that we came here for today. This is a KY Lightsabers Star Killer, or SK. So I've done a number of installs on this particular hilt. It is the same chassis. However, I do want to come into Fusion. We will quickly go over the chassis. Then we will come up top, do a quick demo, talk about how to use the hilt, and then we will put a blade in it. And then we will be on. I can't talk today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Then we will put a blade in it, and then we will be on our way, right? So I'm going to try and keep this a little bit quick. So with all of that out of the way, let's come into Fusion and talk about this chassis. Okay, so here it is. Static chassis for this particular build. Let's start at the bottom. So there's plenty of room in this particular hilt in the grip section. So much room that you can fully enclose a 28mm speaker. So we have a 28mm base speaker down here. I did choose to print this particular chassis in resin. So this is one of my older chassis designs. So we do have a lot of ridges and greebly work on this particular design. And I also have my old 2020 Neopixel strip vents on this one, right? So I chose to just stick with a resin print for this particular chassis. It is a larger chassis, so it's a lot stronger. So I chose to do this one in resin, right? So 2020 Neopixel strips on each side. We've got some greebly vents on this side. Here is our battery tray. I've got my logo in the battery tray here. Along the other side, obviously, here is our Proffie tray. Underneath that Proffie board, there is a kill switch. Okay, the Proffie board just kind of slide up underneath this lip. And that is it. Very, very simple setup. Static chassis. It does marry up into the upper part of the hilt with this nipple. There is a set screw that is holding this chassis in place. However, I did put a very, very small bead of E6000 around this nipple as well, just to help keep it a little bit more secure, right? But other than that, pretty straightforward. Just greeblies, pipes, vents, ridges, holes, and that's it, right? This one was a lot of fun because there's just so much room on the inside of this grip, right? And that is it. Let's come up top. So here it is. This is the KY SK, or the Star Killer from KY Lightsabers, Taiwan, I believe. So I have done a number of these hilts, right? So I do want to talk about this particular install because this one was a little bit different than the previous installs of this same hilt that I have done, right? So I've done a number of these. They are all pretty much the same, but I did recognize or notice some inconsistencies with this particular one, right? So one of the things about this particular SK, when it comes from KY, I don't believe that this is aluminum black. I believe that he paints all of these black sections, right? So unfortunately, I think he paints these after the fact. Like once this crystal chamber module is in here, he then paints it. So it's hard to get this stuff out of here once that paint is cured. So it was difficult getting these out of here. Another thing that I noticed with this version is there was no holes in this upper crystal chamber section for my wires, right? There's holes in this bottom one that I can pass my wire leads through because I've got to get 3 wires up here. I've got to get, well, technically from the bottom here, I've got to get 6 wires. My switch leads and then my blade wires. So there were holes in this bottom crystal chamber holder to get my wires through, but there were none up here. Obviously, we've got a giant gaping hole in the middle of that, but there's no wire passage is what I'm getting at. I don't know why it took me so long to get to that conclusion, but there's no wire passage up here. So I brought my leads through that open hole, and I tried to hide them a little bit better with some black shrink tube, right? I'm not quite sure if that was just forgotten with this particular version, but that was just something that I noticed, right? Other than that, it's just the same version of the SK that KY does, right? Came to me as is, and that's it, right? So to get to your chassis, one of the other intricacies about the SKs and the Jedi Killers, all of the hilts from KY Lightsabers, is that it is a set screw grip, right? So you want to unthread this set screw here to get to your chassis. And here is that chassis, right? So I did a pass of pewter rub and buff on this one. I did paint the accents a little bit. I like doing this when they are big enough, right? I break out my magnifying glass and paint these with a very small paintbrush, right? This was done with pewter rub and buff, and then I sealed it. Okay, we've got our 2020 Neopixel strips in here with some Mylar in front of them for diffusion, and that is it. Very, very simple setup. And here's our Proffie board. This is a Proffie V3 build, okay? So let's get a battery. Spring side is your negative in this build, so the negative is down towards the speaker. You want to put the flat part of your battery down towards that speaker. Hit your kill switch, and you're ready to go. Okay, so there is that crystal. The crystal is lit with one single Neopixel from below, and then of course our 2020 Neopixel strips on each side. Okay. All right. So once you get your battery in, you want to put your grip back in place. Take note of where that set screw hole is. Take note of where your set screw hole is on your grip and line those two up. And then you want to tighten that grip screw in place. I'm just going to hand crank this for the demo. Actually, let me get... Okay. All right. So let's come down to the bottom. All right, so there is that crystal illuminated with one single Neopixel. All right. See what else we got on here.
The NASA team is ready for launch.
I tried to switch up the animation in that crystal chamber for each font. Hopefully my focus is not bouncing around too much. I'm still trying to get used to this new camera, right? All right. Let's put a blade in it. Yeah, somebody made a comment on one of my most recent videos about the focus bouncing around in the background. I'm still trying to get used to the settings on this camera. So this is, I've migrated from the Canon Nikon ecosystem to Sony, and I'm still getting used to a lot of the settings. So anyhow, this is a 1-inch blade holder. There are 2 set screws that you can use to secure your blade. So you want to rest your blade on those PCB pins. I'm just going to hand crank this front set screw for the demo, okay? So you want to tighten that down. Actually, let me tighten it a little bit. Tighten that so it's just kind of hugging the blade, and then you are ready to go. What else we got on here?
Saber. This is the weapon Jedi Knight.
One more. All right, so that is it. That is a SK from KY Lightsabers. Very decent SK specimen, and of course there was so much room in that grip to do a very decent sized chassis to have a lot of greeblies on. So this one was a breeze. So to the customer, excuse me, thank you very much for trusting me with your install, and thank you for your patience. Unfortunately, I finished this right before I went on vacation, and I did not get a chance to get it in the mail before I left. So I will be getting it in the mail today. Thank you very much for your patience. If anyone has any questions about this particular hilt or anything, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.